it out. Okay.
You know that'll go on so long.
All right. Hey, this is Loudjackasspodcast, first episode. Today it's May 30th. You're here with Tony.
And Mike.
And today, the riots. We're going to cover Derek Chauvin. We're going to cover, we're going to compare it to the only other thing we've seen like this, which is the Rodney King riots.
Yeah, the Rodney King riots, which you remember were in March 1992. Rioting doesn't solve anything. I can understand why people are upset. I can understand why they're angry, and they absolutely have the right to be. What we need to do is change the law. And what I mean by that is police are granted what I call special privilege. They get away with things that the average person wouldn't be allowed to get away with. And I don't think that it's fair. I think the police should be held to the same standard that everybody else is held to. If I had done that and it was a private citizen, I would have been arrested right away. Now, later on, if they decide not to charge me or they do charge me, whatever, I would have been arrested immediately.
Right.
And I think the officer should have been arrested right away. And if later on they don't charge him or whatever, he should have been arrested right away, just like everybody else. I don't think it's fair that he got to walk around for 4 days and the average citizen would have been arrested right away. The police aren't any better than anybody else, and they should be treated just the same. And until they are, people are going to continue to protest. Things need to change.
Yeah, I think that they were too slow to catch on and do everything. I mean, firing all 4 people is one gesture, but you know that people are going to be upset. Everyone's been in the house because of this, BS virus. They've been sitting at home, they're amped up, and then you have something that lights the powder keg on fire and starts a bomb, essentially. They should have been quicker to not only fire these people, but to say, pending an investigation, they have been fired, and depending on what this investigation yields, there may be charges filed.
Police in the United States are allowed to arrest someone, no matter who they are, and hold them for 3 days until they charge them. So they got to hold them for 3 days before they decided to charge them, or they had 3 days to charge them. Especially with the video, there's no doubt of what happened. He was negligent, and he contributed to George Floyd's death.
So here we're gonna just play a short clip from CNN where they have a different angle. Now, you've seen the original video, I'm sure, by now. If not, go check it out. We're not going to play it on here. We're playing this video from a separate angle where you can see all of the officers involved. So let's just play this clip real quick. Now, I'm just going to point out that in that situation, everyone thinks the same thing. We're all on the same page. No matter what the blue wall of silence is, and, if you don't stick up for other cops, that they're going to, not help you when you're on a call and stuff like that. All that BS, we all said the same thing. How come one of them didn't get up? Someone who, like the guy in the middle of George Floyd's back, could have gotten up, taken the other guy and be like, hey, don't do that. There's people that's not only illegal and breaking protocol, but guess what else? I'm going to lose my job, my livelihood, my pension. My entire life's going to be screwed up because of one action of another officer. If someone had just gotten up and been like, dude, Derek, you can't do that. Pulled him off. Now, Derek still would have gotten in trouble, no doubt. The other cops probably still would have gotten in trouble. But there could have been an avoidance of the situation had one of them stuck up and been like, dude, you can't put your knee on the back of someone's neck.
All the other 3 cops didn't lift a finger, and in fact, they made a couple of remarks about his breathing. If he's breathing, he's still talking about something that he couldn't get up. I don't know exactly. Anthony, what exactly did they say? Because that's important, because they made a sarcastic remark while he was handcuffed on the ground about him being...
In the original video, Derek was talking to George on the ground. He was like, tough guy, huh? He said that. And I guess one of the cops also said, don't be such a big baby. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, this is the mentality that you have at this job, and you can clearly see the dude suffering. Not only did he, I think he pissed on himself, but his nose was bleeding. I don't know about you, but if someone's nose is bleeding and they're not prone to nosebleeds or anything like that, that's a clear sign something medically is wrong with them.
Yeah, but the other thing
I'm just saying.
This is supposed to be business, police related. It isn't supposed to be personal. You shouldn't be calling out insults. Now, I have other issues with this as well. Once he's handcuffed and he's on the ground, once he's handcuffed, he's no longer a threat. So once he's handcuffed, he's no longer a threat. Why is somebody's knee in his neck, and why are 3 officers still holding him down when he's not a threat? And when he says that he can't breathe, if they didn't get off up until that point, second he says they can't breathe, they should have get off him. They didn't. They insulted him. Not only was the first officer, what's his name? Derek what? The officer.
Chauvin.
Mr. Chauvin was charged with third-degree murder and manslaughter. I think in the coming days, I expect the next 3 to be charged with the same thing, and all 4 of them need to go to jail for a long time. This is unavoidable, and it was unnecessary, and it's a gross use of police force, and it's criminal behavior. Now, let me point out the reason why they weren't charged with first-degree murder. With first-degree murder, they had somebody on from the DA's office the other day on TV. You have to prove intent. They couldn't prove intent, and that's the reason why it was third-degree murder.
All right, and here we're bringing up a story now. We're on the local CBS for Minneapolis, Minnesota, so it's pretty direct. As you can see here, this is basically Derek Chauvin's incident report, if you will. And it says that they're dating back to, 2019, 2017, stuff like that. So, I mean, it's hard because it's like when you start reading this and you see the track record, you go, Derek Chauvin has been involved in a use of force situations before. According to the press, Chauvin shot a man during a domestic assault call in 2008. According to reports, the man had reached Chauvin's gun, and they reported he was one of the 5 others cleared after a police-involved shooting in Little Earth. It must be a place in Minnesota. And then it says excessive force. Even something this minor, right? There was this report that came out. I forget where it was. He had 18 citizen complaints. I had to ask. I'm like, wait. So you're telling me that someone had a job? Anyone who has a job, you got 18 complaints and no one fired you? There was no investigation, no manager, no police chief, the squad captain, whatever came down. I was like, dude, what? You can't do this job. If I was, put it this way, if I was in a retail service industry and I had 18 complaints, I would have gotten canned. Okay, there's no way you keep your job after that.
A long time before they wouldn't have got to 18 complaints, you would have lost your job. It doesn't make any sense at all. So what I think with the 18 complaints, it shows, with the 18 complaints, to me, I think it obviously shows a pattern of bad behavior. That this isn't the first time they've had a problem with this guy, and they should have fired him a long time ago, because obviously he's not responsible enough to wear a badge and carry a gun.
Track record is showing a pattern of behavior that's, leading down this road. I want to see if there's more to this article.
And I'm also mad at the police department in Minneapolis, because there shouldn't be 18 complaints, and this guy still have a job. They should have got rid of him or done something about him a long time ago, and stuff like this maybe wouldn't have happened. So they bear a lot of responsibility,
apparently it's
too.
also come out that the that infamous case that they bring up against Amy Klobuchar, how she cleared an officer who shouldn't have been cleared in the case for the shooting. He was that guy.
He was?
Yeah, so I'm amazed that after an incident like that, even, put it this way, it didn't go to a grand jury, they didn't get to the point where they could do a trial. Okay, fine. But if you had that much heat on you as an officer at that point, you're telling me that doesn't warrant someone at the station being like, look, you probably shouldn't do active duty. You want to do a desk job, you want to do the motor pool, you want to do traffic, fine. But you shouldn't be able to enforce the authority that you supposedly have because you can't handle it.
So let's remind people, do we happen to remember the details of that Amy Klobuchar case that he was involved in?
I suppose we could bring it up.
We'd have to bring it up.
You know what? Since we're live, let's go ahead.
I think it's relevant, and we should bring it up.
Of course, I switched to the wrong screen. My bad. First stream, you're gonna have issues. It's okay. So, former Democratic presidential candidate, potential vice president pick, Amy Klobuchar failed to get charges brought against the police officer. Apparently, that's Derek Chauvin. And they're just covering this. They're saying,
you need to read the story.
I'm going to read this here. So, I'm just going to pick up that. It was 42-year-old Wayne Reyes in 2006 brandished a shotgun at the cops, according to a report by that group there. I'm not going to read all that. The shooting occurred during Klobuchar's tenure as county attorney, but the case didn't go before grand jury until after she left office and later became a Minnesota senator. Okay, in 2008, grand jury ultimately decided not to charge the officers with any. So I was wrong with the grand jury thing. I'm a bit slow, but trust me, we're gonna get there. Officers with any wrongdoing in the shooting. Klobuchar, who had floated as possible VP pick for Joe Biden, also did not criminally charge other cops involved in more than 24 officer-involved fatalities that took place during the time as prosecutor from 1996 to 2006. 1999-2006.
What are the circumstances regarding this shooting with this officer that day, though? That's what we need to find. That's what we need to figure out.
Well, it's what it's saying. It was a 42-year-old man by the name of Wayne Raines in 2006 who had brandished a shotgun at the cops. Now, I know that the training is if someone pulls a gun out, like the, I forget the name of the guy, I'm sorry, my mind's getting racked here. Remember the guy, it happened within like the last 2 years, who was in the car with his kid in the back seat, his girlfriend in the back seat next to him, and he said that he had a gun, and then he was going to go reach for his wallet and he got shot. And the mentality is if you hear the word gun or you see a gun, shoot. I don't think it's warranted in every single situation, obviously, because this man could have potentially been nonviolent, but again, let's see if there's anything down here about the rest of the case. Oh, okay. I'm going to read ahead for a second. Doesn't seem to be... It doesn't mention anything. Look, I'm not even going to go that deep.
But our point of bringing this up is to show that this officer, it wasn't the George Floyd case was not the first time he acted inappropriately, and people could question his motives or his behavior or his actions as an officer. Had been more than one time in the past where this has happened, and he probably shouldn't have been in the force at the time when the George Floyd death. He should have been fired or retired or whatever. Not allowed to be a police officer.
Put it this way: if in 2008 he was in this major of a case where it got, I'm imagining national press coverage. At that point, I would just say, you know what, you're fired. Okay, there's not. For instance, you have all these other complaints that come in, all this other stuff. Okay, you have this major one that comes out. How do you still have a job? And in my opinion, in a lot of people's opinion, it's gonna be like, look, I'm questioning your ability to safely execute the job that you're doing, and not only a job with a lot of responsibility. If at this point in time I'm questioning the nature of your ability to do this job the right way, you shouldn't have it.
Well, the other thing too is once you get so many complaints, you ask for the fourth, fifth, or sixth complaint. I don't know what the magic number is, but at some point, it's not.
I mean, 18's high. It's citizens' complaints, fine. But then you have these other incidents which are known about that aren't citizens' complaints, and something as massive as an officer-involved shooting that had a questionable outcome.
Right. So I guess the point is when you put it all together, at some point it starts becoming a coincidence, and it has to do with you as a
pattern of behavior.
Yeah, it becomes a pattern of behavior instead of a coincidence. And at some point, how long do you let someone be an officer of the law? This was the average job work for the average company. Mm-hmm. Long before that many violations of warning, you'd be fired. There's only so many times you can mess up. But police officers get to keep on making mistakes, do things wrong, everything, and they still be able to have their job. And that needs to change.
There needs to be reform in how things are handled when things go wrong for a cop. And you have questions as opposed to answers when they're involved in something.
Now, there's one thing that needs to happen, and they should make this a federal law, and it hasn't happened yet. Anytime there's an incident with a police shooting, anything like that, and a death inside a police station, the federal government, an outside agency, somebody independent with no bias needs to investigate, not the own department.
All right. Speaking of bias, we're going to move on to this little tidbit that's been recurring around the news. Is apparently they worked security at the same nightclub in Minneapolis at one point.
Now, when you say who worked security, George Floyd and the officer that was charged in his death, both for a period of time were working security at the same nightclub.
Also, I think it's cited that this happened before he became a cop, so it would be pre-2008 and such. But it could have been a while back. It's just, I'm not going to go and jump the gun and say that there was intent here in his actions, but it could come out that there was. Again, we only know so much on the fact that we're not inside of, the lawyer's office knowing what the facts are and such, so we can only get so much.
No, I'd like to add something to that.
Also, it says, God, there's a lot to read here. Hold on. Well, Chauvin's off-duty job at the God, I suck at pronouncing stuff. Nuevo Rodeo Club stretch over 17 years until a few months ago. Holy shit, he was working here a few months ago. A few months ago, he was working here at the same club. Okay. Okay, dozens by African-American promoters. Don't turn this into a race thing, people, please. Okay. I told him I was... Okay. It's just... Look, I'm not going to argue intent with this. It's hard to say whether or not that when he arrived on scene and he saw George Floyd that he recognized him. But chances are he did, because I remember the people I worked with.
He might.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah, there's a chance he did. No.
Well, I'm just going to... Beforehand, I'm just going to say this. They all worked in the same thing at the club. It wasn't like one guy was a club promoter / he goes in the back and gets supplies. They're both working security. So the chances are they had to have face-to-face interactions with each other every single time they go to work.
Now, the reason why they didn't charge him with first-degree murder is they can't prove intent. But by watching the video, he purposely held his knee in his neck. And then, one of the things the most troublesome, when Floyd says he can't breathe and he got bystanders yelling at the cop, he still doesn't let go of the guy. He still doesn't take the knee off his neck. If that's not intent, then I don't know what is.
I think it is intent.
I do, because of his behavior.
It's odd that you would say that kind of stuff. I know people go, oh, it's direct, it's murder. Okay, you have to prove mens rea, which is under the law, which means intent. That you have to be knowledgeable of the fact that you want to commit this specific crime and do this specific action. The reason why they're doing third-degree murder and manslaughter is because they're not going to immediately go, well, we can prove that when he arrived on the scene, he wanted to kill George Floyd.
Yeah, but there's one other thing. Let's mention this. This is really important. We should have said this before. The medical examiner has already done his autopsy. Now, let me say what he said. And the family has hired a second, Michael Bolden, a second former medical examiner to do a second autopsy. The first autopsy, which has already been done, the medical examiner concluded that the manner of death cannot be totally attributed to strangulation. Says some of it has to do with underlying health issues and with other things, and that's why he died. But he didn't die as a result of being denied air or the knee in the neck. That wasn't the total cause of death.
But I'm going to say this. Unlike the Eric Garner case...
It was a contributing factor.
Right. Unlike the Eric Garner case, though, there's a point where it's like using a certain amount of force, they stopped using the certain amount of force. The guy was saying that he couldn't breathe and he died. And they're saying he was overweight, he had heart issues, all this, that, and third. George Floyd, it was direct result. You putting your knee on his neck, and then he passes out. Because they never let him. They never released the pressure. Never let him go. Yeah, it's not like the dude got up, stopped putting a knee on his neck, and they rolled him over, and he's like, "Oh, I can breathe again." That never happened.
But the other thing too is when on the video, when they go to get off him and get him up, he's already unconscious.
All right, and now I think it's an apt comparison. The Rodney King riots. Now, I watched a documentary on Netflix a little while back, and it pretty much was everything that when I was literally born in 1991, it was like, oh, no Rodney King riots. I don't know what that is, right? So as I grew older, I was interested about it, learned about it. So I'm checking this documentary, and it's like, well, there was the tension that the Korean store owner, the lady, shot a young black girl who was shoplifting. Okay, and that had racial tensions. You had Al Sharpton out there, I'm pretty sure, and Jesse Jackson protesting and marching. Okay. And then the Rodney King situation happened. I'm not going to say it's similar to this. Now, it is police brutality on someone who's black. Again, I don't care about what someone's race is. If your rights are being abused, that pisses me the fuck off. Period.
You don't need, in the Rodney King video, they had 4 cops beating the shit out of that guy.
Right.
With nightsticks. And I don't even know why they pulled him over, but it was a minor...
He was speeding, he was high, he was going down the freeway really fast. It was a potential danger to the community. Now, Rodney King has some massive balls because he comes out after everything has happened and his face is healed up and he makes a public announcement. Can't we all just get along? I was wrong. I made a mistake. And I'm like, you know what? He's right. He did make a mistake. but I'm not justifying 4 cops treating him like he's a fucking pinata.
There's no
justification for that at all.
Not even a close.
It'd be one thing if he had a gun and he was going to shoot one of them and they hit him one time. But that's defending yourself versus just treating someone like a pinata, which it's a joke, but it's the fucking truth of the matter. Someone else's rights are being abused in the case, and it just, it kills me because it's like,
we shouldn't say you beat him like a pinata. We don't mean to say that to be wise, but we're trying to say...
It's an old case.
It's an excessive use of force, and there's no justification for it.
I'm trying to bring a little levity to the situation because of how, fucked up the subject matter is. But here's the thing. These riots are incredibly comparable in the terms of people in the media... Online, everywhere. Well, not online because they didn't have the internet back then like we do today. But they were stoking the racial tension to a point where it erupted. Now, here's the thing that I don't get. The Rodney King trial, it happened. They got acquitted. The riots happened. It was like what was it?
But there's no way they should have been acquitted. No way should they have been acquitted.
No.
All of them should have gone to jail, and they should all still be in jail.
Yeah. So here's the thing. You do the timeline of events, and you're like, okay, I'm watching this. I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. This makes sense, in a sense, how people are angry at the end when the trial was like they've been acquitted. This hasn't even gone to a fucking trial yet. Literally, the charges were about to be filed in the middle of the riots. And here's the thing. I have no problem with a peaceful protest, okay? I was watching a video last night about the Oakland protest. And you have these people screaming in the cops' face, fucking pigs! Pigs need to die! And I'm like, I get peaceful protest. Now, I wouldn't do that because if you could piss off the wrong cop and get your shit smacked, okay? I'm just saying. But I'm all right with you marching, having signs, and you're protesting, fine. But the assholes burning shit, graffitiing shit, breaking
looting.
Shit, stealing shit, looting, you need to stop, you fucking retard. And this is the thing that pisses me off. I think it's just a lack of fucking intelligence with a lot of these people who are doing this shit, no matter what color you are. You know better, don't you? Weren't you raised right? Didn't they teach you not to fucking steal shit? Even if... Here's the thing. There's people who are legitimately upset, and they're out there spray painting, breaking shit, burning shit. Okay. They just need a lesson in how to express their anger without fucking, doing illegal activity.
I know, but
then there's people, if I may, taking advantage of this situation. Going in, yeah, George Floyd, justice for George. Hey, I need a flat screen. I need some pillows. I'm going to go raid the Target. Hey, I broke into the bank. I want to see if there's some money in the drawer. Those people and anyone else who are rioting and looting, stop it. Go home, you fucking idiots. You're not going to tell me that you're there for George, because guess what? If you were, you would have been with the fucking protest.
Well, the other thing, too, is you're not honoring his memory by acting like that. That's number one. Number two, just because you're mad about something is no excuse to break the law, be setting the buildings on fire and looting and stealing. And there are a lot of people that work really hard to start the businesses, put their whole life savings and whatever they have into it, and you're going on and burning and looting their business. What do they do to you? These people, these companies that own their business, they didn't do anything to you. And that's not going to solve anything. That not only is wrong and it's illegal and you shouldn't act like that, it's not going to solve anything. It's only going to make things worse.
Let's just go ahead and play this. You tell me, is this in the memory of George Floyd?
Guys, I'm back. It's your boy GQ, man. If you have not subscribed to my channel...
Okay, yeah, I'm just going to mute him. All right.
Now, how is this going to solve anything?
I'm just saying, just take a look at the screen and ask yourselves, is this for George Floyd? Do you think this is what he would have wanted? There's a video circulating online of him talking about the youth, the black youth, and how they're just out here, he said, busting guns, basically, that shows how real someone is. That's the mentality they have. Now, I think he's talking about, just dudes who are, like, in gangs and shit, because, like, the average person isn't going to be busting guns and stuff, but the average mentality of young people these days is just atrocious. If this is what you think is going to, quote-unquote, solve the issue of injustice and bring justice to a situation that's unjust, I got a newsflash for you. You are a fucking retard and you need to educate yourself. This is not going to do anything but make it harder to climb up that hill to get to the place where we can have some talks and then some action that will lead to reform. Just saying. Go ahead.
Well, there are a couple of things to keep in mind, and I want to point out something. According to the FBI statistics, 4% of police shootings are white cops shooting black suspects. Now, it's a fact that a lot more white people get shot than black people by cops because there were more white people in the population than black people.
Yep.
But black people have 3 times a higher rate of getting shot. I mean,
go ahead.
Let me finish.
I'm just suggesting.
Yeah, black people have a 3 more higher chance of getting shot than a white person, but more white people by the numbers get shot. So, and the other thing too is a few bad cops shouldn't, they poison the rest of it. There's a lot of good cops out there working hard every day, doing their job and trying to help the community. And you get a few assholes like this guy here that are ruining for people and make those cops look bad. But most cops, they try and they do a good job. Most police are not like that.
One spoiled apple ruins the bunch. 1 out of 100 officers can do something wrong. Gets captured on camera. All cops are bad. And people say, well, cops are going to defend each other. Yeah, because there's cases of cops who have snitched on other cops for doing something, misconduct. And then when they're on a call and they're getting shot at, no backup shows up. Why? Because they're sending a message to the rat. That kind of mentality is horrifying, to think that the people who are supposed to protect and serve are the same essentially as a bunch of high school idiots.